God bless you, friends, and welcome back to Blaze in the Trail broadcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Foster, and today I have with me Apostle Michael Fram, my Uncle Mike. And we are going to be talking about the role of our spiritual family and what it means to not just belong to the family of God as far as a church denomination in a church building, but what it means to flow as a family, to be there for one another, and what it means to truly depend on our brothers and sisters and how the Lord uses them in our lives to bring the best out of us as well as to help us through our processes. So if you can please begin to share the broadcast and let us know where you are watching us from. I'm going to be sharing from my phone really quick to groups and pages. So if you can please bear with me and let us know where you are, what part of the world you are watching us from, and please tag your friends on the comments so they can join us for this broadcast on today. So I felt led to have us teach on this subject, Uncle Mike, because like you said, you have a whole family. You got mamas and daddies and uncles and cousins and big brothers and all kinds of stuff. But you know what? Each one of you plays a special role in my life. And the Lord is the one who aligned us and who connected us. So first, why don't you share with our friends a little bit about you and your ministry and what it is that you do? And then we can get a little more into how the Lord has even used your own spiritual as well as natural family to bring forth maturity in you as a son and to really help to manifest your calling and to help you to walk in that.
Well, it's fun to be with you. And I don't even think we've actually been closely knit for all that long. It's only been, I think, several months since like the beginning of the year or the end of last year.
About 6 months or so. I think 6-7 months. You know.
But we've become pretty close in a very short period of time. Mm-hmm. And, you know, when God makes a connection, God makes a connection. And it's been a pleasure for me to get to know you and to work with you. I've been on your program and you've been on my program. And I'm sure that's going to continue as we go forward, where we will be on each other's programs. And of course, we're both part of the Love and Unity family. And we interact quite frequently on the various Zoom meetings. But I am a second generation preacher. I've been in the ministry now for 40, whatever it is, years. And I tell people all the time, I would not be who I am or what I am if it wasn't for Apostle Leo Fram and Apostle Edith Fram. Mm-hmm. Because what Mama and Papa have poured into me, how they have mentored me and trained me and developed me, has made me who and what I am. Between them and sitting at Dad Hagen's feet for 2 years at Rhema, you know, it really gave me a very solid foundation to work from and to work off of. And I've worn about every hat that one could wear in the ministry. Any area pretty much of helps ministry, I have done it. And any area of ministry, I have done it throughout. I think it's 43 years now at this point, because I started when I was 17 and I just turned 60 in March. So it's been a few days. And, you know, parenting is really important, both naturally and spiritually. Mm-hmm. And I'm kind of the oddball. I think myself and Dr. Don Hughes are kind of the oddballs out there, because our natural father was also our spiritual father. And not a lot of people can say that their spiritual father was their natural father, but he and I have the distinct privilege of being able to say that. I think Pastor Lonzine can say that with Mama Baker. Yes. And she gets that. But it's like a very rare club for people that have that. But one of the things that we're seeing right now in the kingdom is a real emphasis on spiritual fathers and spiritual mothers like we have not seen even in all of my years in the church. I got born again when I was 5.
Wow.
And, you know, in those days, growing up as a Baptist boy, we didn't know anything about spiritual fathers.
No.
And even when I, you know, got filled with the Holy Ghost when I was a freshman in high school at 15, and I became Baptist-costal, we didn't know anything about spiritual fathers. And then even all through the 80s and all through the Word of Faith movement, we didn't know anything about spiritual fathers. It was totally unheard of and unthought of. And I guess when Dr. Mark Hanby put out his book on Not Many Fathers, it was revolutionary because nobody had even ever heard of such a thought before. And he really was the forerunner, or one of the forerunners, to a fathering message that many in apostolic and prophetic circles today accept as being right and real. But up until that time, nobody had even ever thought of it. And so there is a real emphasis on that right now. And we're finding these dynamics in ministry where to some people, I'm like a big brother. I have some people that I am older than, and they call me big brother, like Apostle Angie, who's my dear, dear, dear sister. And she calls me her big brother. But then I have 2 ladies that are in my life. One is Prophet Margie Florent, and one is Dr. Pam Parker. And they both say that even though we're older than you, you're still our big brother. So I'm like the little big brother to both of them. So there's that dynamic that we're seeing where we have people become like big brothers to people. And then you have like Prophet Anita. She says to Apostle Don Hughes is her spiritual papa. But he's my brother from another mother. And his mother has adopted me. And now my mother has adopted him. Yeah. Because when he was here in New Jersey a couple of weeks ago for the local KDI conference, Mom and Dad were there, and he fell in love with Mom and Dad. And of course, Mom and Dad fell in love with him. And so we're literally brothers from another mother. And so Prophet Anita says, well, you know, Papa Don is your brother, so you're my uncle.
That's right.
And so there's many like her, like you, like Pastor Lanzine, that refer to me as a spiritual uncle. Any of these types of relationships, whether it's an older sibling or whether it's a uncle or an aunt or a mama or a papa, it's a relationship that must be sown into.
Yes.
Everything in the kingdom works by relationship. And like any relationship, you have to value it, you have to honor it, and you have to sow into it. You know, when I was younger, I took a certain fancy to a young lady. And I began to want to spend time with her. And it got to the point where I really got to know her. And I got to know what she liked and what she didn't like. I got to know what made her tick. And I got to know what her hot buttons were that would make her want to lay hands on me suddenly. But it came out of relationship and out of time spent together. And kingdom relationships are no different. We've got to be willing to sow the time if we want to reap the harvest of a successful family relationship. So that's a good foundation to start with. Where do you want to go?
So, you know, many times people ask this, and I have heard this several times. Can you have more than one spiritual father? Yes or no? Because in the past, we've been told, absolutely not, blah, blah, blah. You cannot jump from father to father to father. And I agree with that. I do. And we understand that there needs to be stability and there needs to be, again, like you said, relationship. If you're always busy jumping from one person to the next, you're never going to build true relationship. But is it possible that there can be several people within your life that play together somehow that role of father to you?
I believe absolutely, because when you look at the scripture, when Paul was writing to the church at Corinth, he said, "You have not many fathers," and the word was plural, it wasn't singular. And from my own experience, Kenneth Hagin was a spiritual father to me because I sat at his feet for 2 years at Rhema. He fathered me through his books. He fathered me through his tapes. They were cassettes. They weren't reel to reel, but they were cassettes. We don't even use cassettes anymore now. We don't even use CDs anymore. Now everything is MP3. It's all streaming, MP3 and MP4. But back in the old days, it was CDs, and before that it was cassettes, and before that it was reel to reel. I don't go back to reel to reel, but I do go back to cassette. And so he fathered me through his tapes. He fathered me through his books, and he fathered me because I got to sit at his feet for 2 years in Rhema and have him impart not only his knowledge and his revelation, but his DNA. Because, you know, some things are taught and some things are caught.
Yes.
And sometimes you just have to get it by the impartation and what you are catching. And so he was a father to me while my dad was still a father to me.
Mm-hmm.
And they served different roles and they served different functions.
Yes.
But they both fathered me. And then there was a season in my life where God used a man. I wouldn't say that he actually fathered me, but he certainly mentored me in a great way. And a lot of what he poured into me are things that I use right now in my own mentoring groups and mentoring programs that I do. And it was a man by the name of Dr. Mike Brown, who lives in Branson, Missouri. And he has a ministry called Strength and Wisdom Ministries. He also just took over a church in Branson that Gary McSpadden had been the pastor of, and Gary McSpadden went to be with the Lord. And so now he's the senior leader of Faith and Wisdom Church. And there was a season in my life where Dr. Brown, I was going to a lot of his seminars. He was coming into this area in New Jersey, and he taught wisdom principles that so impacted my life that they become part of who I am. He taught me about honor like nobody else taught me about honor. He taught me about the law of association and who you associate with and how important that is. Yes. Real key kingdom and wisdom principles. And so in a sense, he was like a father, but I didn't have the direct interaction with him that you would expect from a father-child relationship, but certainly was a great mentor to me. And so I believe it's possible to have multiple people that speak into your life at multiple levels. And they're all there to help us in our development and in our progression. And I thank God for mom and dad and what they poured in. I thank God for Dr. Brown, and I thank God for Dad Hagin, because they all poured into me. In my early days, R.W. Schambach was a major influence in my life because I grew up as a teenager in Schambach's tents. And as a Baptist boy going to Schambach's tent meetings, it was like wild all the time. But I learned things from being in his meetings. And so you may not have everybody be an intimate relationship, but you can certainly have people at multiple levels that will speak into your life. Let me answer it to you this way, and this may help. When you come to a father-child or a mother-child relationship, there has got to be a mutual drawing on both ends.
Right there.
Because if the father or mother feels it and the child doesn't, it's not going to work.
No.
And many times we've got, people that are looking for prospective fathers or prospective mothers. and they take a liking or take a fancy to somebody, and they're like, I want you to be my father. And my answer is always the same. Let's begin a relationship and see where it goes.
Yes.
I've had many come into my mentoring group, and because they were in my mentoring group, they went around telling people Apostle Michael is my father. And I'm like, oh, no, I'm not. God didn't tell me that. You
Right.
just came into my mentoring group. That does not make you my child and does not make me your father. And there have been some where it was a very quick connection. And there have been some that it's taken a long time. It's taken over a year for me to feel like I actually connected with them on a personal level. And
Mm.
so if you're going to be a father, a big brother, a mother, an uncle, an aunt, whatever the case may be, there's got to be a mutual drawing on both sides. And both parties have to recognize it and be aware of it for it to produce fruit. Because if there's no pollination, there's not going to be any fruit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Many times people, I think, they have some confusion between the term mentor and father, and I know that a lot of individuals use the words interchangeably. But there is, I believe, a difference between somebody who can mentor you in an area and somebody who actually is a father to you and pours into you purposely. Can you kind of break down a little bit about the differences between a mentor who helps you in an area and a father who actually comes alongside of you and helps to shape you as a whole?
A mentor teaches you what they know and they teach you what they do.
Mm-hmm.
A father duplicates themselves in you. There's a transference of a spiritual DNA and a transference of the heart of the father. That doesn't come necessarily with a mentor. Many
Yes,
times, mentors are for seasons in your life.
that's right.
Dr. Brown was in a fairly close relationship with me for about 4 or 5 years, and I with him. I'm still loosely related to him, but not like I was. But during those 4 or 5 years, it was a season that God used him to pour things into me that I really needed. A father is with you for life.
Mm-hmm.
A mentor wants you to be able to do what they do. A father wants you to do more than they do.
Oh, so good.
That's some of the difference between a mentor and a father. I
How,
tell my kids that I've connected with, you can't get rid of me if you wanted to. You could cuss me out. Sorry, you're stuck with me.
right.
Because it's just like, your kids in the natural, they may do stuff that you don't like that
Yeah,
they do, but you love them and you are in their life till
that's right.
until I tell my spiritual kids. In fact, I told one of my daughters last week, and she's gone through a lot of things like many people in the kingdom do. And I just said, honey, you ain't getting rid of me. I said, you could cuss me out tomorrow and I'd still be in your life, because a father is there for the long haul and is
Mm-hmm.
there for the duration, where a mentor may be for a season.
Mm-hmm. Mm. So good. I know you shared before that when you started doing ministry, your focus was never to be in any way a spiritual father, but the Lord began dealing with you specifically that it was now time for you to begin to pass on the knowledge of what you had. And many times we hear about people saying, "Oh, I'm a father here, I'm a father there," but you don't really see any transformation in the people that they are in relationship with, or in a subscription with. I know I'm being facetious.
Oh, you're so bad. Bad Jennifer. Bad Jennifer.
Well, you know that they're your daddy only until your credit card expires and you run out of money.
She said it. I didn't. I agree with her, but she said it. Her address is, address your cards and letters.
Apostle Don, Dr. Don calls it a rent daddy.
That's exactly right. That's what it is.
So, there was something that the Lord did in you first to prepare you in order for you to be able to impart to others that which you had imparted to you. Yes. What are some ways in which we can discern when the Lord is beginning to prepare us to father other people, or even perhaps mentor at first and then eventually begin to father them in a spiritual way?
Well, for me, it was where God just flat out told me. It was about 6 months before my apostolic commissioning. It was a fall day in 2015. I don't know the day. I didn't mark it. But the Lord said to me, it is time for you to do for others what Leo did for you. And that totally changed my life. And it revolutionized my life. And when he said that, the only way that I can explain it, and this is going a little bit old school, but if anybody can remember a jukebox or a payphone, you would drop a quarter in and you would hear it go clink. And when it would clink, it had dropped in. Then you knew you could either play the song that you wanted to hear, or you would get a dial tone and you could then dial the payphone. And back then, some of them weren't even push button. They were rotary. And you, I'm really going old school now.
I remember those.
But
South.
You would hear that thing go clink when it hit the coin box. Well, when God said that to me, I felt the clink in my spirit. And God dropped the Father's heart in me that I never had before. And all of a sudden, I began to be concerned about another generation that was up and coming. And I became very concerned and very aware of the fact that there weren't many fathers. There were a lot of teachers, but there weren't many fathers. And people were needing somebody to pour into them and somebody to give them real world experience and tell them where the rubber meets the road. I think what you will find is about the fruit. I just got a text not long ago, about 5 minutes before I logged in to be with you, from one of my daughters. And she said, "Did you catch my broadcast this morning? I think I was teaching and I think I sounded like you." I didn't catch her broadcast this morning. Sometimes I do. Today I did not. And I said, "No, I didn't, but I'm not surprised, because there have been times that I have watched her and the preach will hit her out of like left field, similarly like it hits me." And I say to myself, I wonder where she got that from. Because so often in my life, I would begin to do things that I knew came from either Dad Hagen, from Leo, or from Edith. Either from Mama or Papa or from Dad Hagen. I knew it came from them. There is a direct link, a direct line. And there should be evident fruit of the impartation and the revelation of the spiritual parent in the life of the spiritual son or daughter. And if there's not, if you do not begin to take on the characteristics, if you do not begin to take on the man, I call it having the M's.
Yeah.
You have the mantle. You have the mindset. You have the message. You have the mission. You have the MO, the modus operandi. All of those things of your parent, whoever it happens to be, those things will begin to become evident in your life. And if they're not, that means there's no revelation being imparted. There's no mantle. There's no heart. There's no spirit. None of that is being imparted to you. It may be because either you're not spending enough time together, or it may be that somebody's not receiving what's being imparted. I remember when I came out of Rhema and I went on a missionary trip a few years after I graduated from Rhema, and I was in Germany, and I was in old East Germany. This was after the Berlin Wall fell. Yeah. It was about a year or two after the fall of the Berlin Wall. And I actually have over here on my shelf, I have a piece of the Berlin Wall.
Wow.
Right there next to Popeye, between the Popeye and the eagle.
Yeah.
That's a piece of the Berlin Wall that I got when I was in Germany. And I was on this boat ride around the city with another Rhema grad. We actually went to school together. I was in the evangelist group. He was in the pastor's group. And I said to him one day, Mark, how is it that people sat through the same classes that you and I sat through, and Lord only knows what they heard, because they're not saying what we're saying? And he said to me, Mike, they went in with their own preconceived ideas, and they're mixing their preconceived ideas with what we were taught, and are coming out with a different gospel than what we are preaching. Sometimes if the impartation isn't pure with a pure heart received, then you're going to end up with some fruity, flaky, and nutty, or what I call granola Christianity.
Trail mix.
Real fruity, flaky, and nutty stuff, because you're mixing truth with your own ideas, which is what cults do.
Yeah.
And sadly, we've had some Christian cults. Charles Capps used to say, you know, the Bible is really simple and is very easy to understand. But unfortunately, we've had a lot of help, which has made us misunderstand. And sadly, that's true. And our own preconceived ideas. And so if there is that real relationship, it should become evident. And people should say, oh, they've been sitting under X, because when they speak, I hear X.
Yes.
When they act, I see X. See, they spoke of the disciples and said, these are ignorant and unlearned men, but they have been with Jesus.
That's right.
And so there has to be that impartation where something rubs off. You know, the word anointing means to rub.
Yes.
Well, if there's not intimate time, there can be no rubbing. There can be no transference. If iron's going to sharpen iron, there's got to be time for that interaction. And so when you start talking about spiritual family, there's got to be time made for that rubbing. There's got to be time made for that iron to sharpen iron. And eventually, people began to say, he looks like Leo. He sounds like Leo. He acts like Leo. He has the same facial gestures as Leo, the same expressions as Leo. He preaches like Leo. He teaches like, well, Leo's my father. I carry Leo's DNA. Jesus said, whatever I see my father do, that's what I do. Whatever I hear my father say, that's what my words aren't mine. That's They're right. The words of him that sent me. And so when we have that real relationship in a spiritual family, those things are transferable, and they should also be visible. If there's no fruit of it, you have to question whether or not it's a real family relationship or not.
That is so good. You know, Deuteronomy 5:16 says this, says, honor your father and your mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may live long and that it may go well with you in the land and the Lord your God is giving you. How does this apply to spiritual parents as well as our natural parents?
Well, it applies to both because you're dealing with the honor principle. You know, honor your father and mother was a commandment with a promise
Mm-hmm.
that it may be well with you. Well, I don't know about you, but I want it to be well with me.
Yes.
I don't want it to be not well with me. I want it to be well with me. So that means I have to honor my father and mother. Well, that's true naturally, and it's true spiritually. We've become very flippant
Mm,
in the church today. And we just want to have everybody be our buddy and be our pal.
it's true.
And we think we can just call people whatever.
Yeah.
And you know, last week Dr. Baker was my guest on my program last Thursday night, and I said to her before we went live, I said, I hope you don't mind, but I always call you Dr. Baker because I feel like I need to, out of honor and out of respect for who you are. There's just something in me that's old school.
Yes.
You know, I believe in calling a senator,
Right.
whether I voted for him or not.
Right.
I believe in calling a congressman or a congresswoman, congressman or congresswoman, whether I voted for them or not. I believe in referring to the president or the vice president as the president or the vice president, whether I voted for them or not. I believe in calling a Supreme Court justice, Your Honor, whether I agree with their appointment to the bench or I don't agree with their appointment to the bench.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I pray for all of them
Mm-hmm.
and honor them because they're worthy of honor. And yet we come into the kingdom and we don't honor.
Yes.
We want to call everybody Jim. Okay, but where's the honor in that? Well, you know, Jesus didn't go around and no, but they called them master.
Yes.
They called them Lord. They called them rabbi. They called them Rabboni, which were all terms of honor and respect.
Yes.
Notice Jesus never corrected anybody for referring to him as master or
Mm-hmm.
Lord. Son of David. He never said, don't call me that, because he understood the honor principle. But in today's church, well, you're just Jennifer and I'm just Mike. Well, yes, we are. But there are other things that we can do to honor.
Yes.
And part of it is just how we approach and how we respect people. Now, there's my sister Pam, who was just raising her hand there. Now, Pam's got a PhD in psychology.
Mm.
She's also a prophet. I've known Pam for about 30 years. So many times I refer to her as Prophet Pam.
Yeah.
Sometimes I refer to her as Dr. Pam. And she's one that says that I'm her younger big brother. I still refer to her as Dr. Pam or Prophet Pam. Why? Out of respect and out of honor. Now, there may be things one-on-one behind the scenes where it may not be that way.
Right.
I might call her honey, or I may call her sweetheart. I call Apostle Eddie Bubba or handsome. I call Don Hughes Bubba all the time, but
Yeah.
publicly, he's Papa Eddie or Apostle Eddie.
Yeah.
Don is either Dr. Don or Apostle Don, publicly.
Yes.
Behind the scenes, he's Bubba.
Yeah.
You know, when he calls me up in the morning before he's had his coffee and he sounds like Barry White, and he's like, "What's up, Bubba?" He's got this deep Barry. He's like a cross between Sam Elliott and Barry White before he's had a coffee. That's different But publicly, there's got to be this thing of honor
It's true.
that we show.
Yes.
And so I would love to see honor come into the kingdom. And some of my kids, they call me Papa Mike.
Mm-hmm.
Some of my kids call me Pops.
Yes.
I have one that calls me a Pops. I have another one that calls me a Pop Sauce. And I said, Kim, how did you come up with a Pop Sauce? And she said, well, you're, a pop, like you're an apostle, so there's that. You're a father, so you're Pop. And you're always cooking sauce, so a Pop Sauce. Okay, a Pop Sauce. But she doesn't mean it out of disrespect. That's like a term of endearment for her. Yes. When she refers to me. So I'll get a note from her, it'll say a Pop Sauce. Well, I know that's her way of showing her endearment to me. And it's all good. But she respects who I am and what I am in her life. We could use some more of that in the kingdom.
Yeah.
We could use some of that. It would help us go a long way, because I learned the principle, the wisdom key. What you honor, you draw to you.
That's right.
What you dishonor, you repel or push away from you.
That's right.
And if God's put a mentor, a mother, a father, an uncle, an aunt, a big brother, a big sister, whatever the case may be in your life, and you don't honor them, you're actually repelling them and pushing them away from you. Yes. The other wisdom principle that I learned, and this one came from my dad, you can only receive from what you honor. Mm-hmm. If you don't honor it, you can't receive from it. Which is why when Jesus got to Nazareth, he couldn't do any mighty works, because they didn't honor who he was and what he carried. And so that stuff really becomes important. And so when you say honor your father and mother, that it may be well with you, that applies to natural parents and it applies to spiritual parents. In my case, they happen to be the same people.
Yeah.
But again, I'm in a peculiar club.
What are some tangible ways beyond the title and, those sort of things in which you can show honor to your spiritual parents?
Beyond the title is very easy. A lot of it is just how do you speak about them, and how do you speak to them. When your children want something from you, they are good at loving you and buttering you up. Sometimes spiritual children are spoiled brats.
That's true.
They don't know how to ask. They demand and expect rather than respect and receive. And so a lot of it is just the attitude that you come with. And you can tell when people, like I said, when Kim came up with this name of Pop Sauce, I was like, okay, Kim, how did you come up with that? And I was like, okay. Once she explained it to me, I said, okay, I get it. I realized for her, that was a term of endearment, because I've seen her give nicknames to a lot of her spiritual siblings.
Yeah.
And as she began to give her term of endearment is people that she really likes, she gives nicknames to.
Oh, funny.
So this is how she acts. This is the way she, like me, I tell people cooking is my love language.
Yes, it is.
And, if I want to show you I love you, I cook for you. Which is why often when I go places, I end up cooking when I get there. Because it's a labor of love. And if I see people enjoy a great meal, I am very happy.
Yeah.
And so I'm honoring these people in my life. And so it's not just a title.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we've gotten to the point where we've made titles that important. They're important in the sense that a title will show honor, but a title is also a job description.
Right. It's true.
And so if somebody says doctor, you know what somebody's vocation is. If you say cardiologist, now you know what kind of a doctor. If somebody says ophthalmologist, now you know they're a different kind of a doctor. And if you say podiatrist, now you know they're a different kind of a. Now, all three of them are doctors,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all different. And if you need a heart bypass to be done, you probably don't want to go to a podiatrist because it's not a doctor that's graced or gifted or has expertise in that area. And so the title does describe the function. And so many times titles are important in that respect because we're describing function. But other than that, we honor and we show that honor by how we treat one another, by not being arrogant,
Mm-hmm.
by being receptive, by
Mm-hmm.
being humble. And it's operating out of a pure motive, out of a motive of love, out of even parents and uncles and big brothers. Our goal is to serve.
Yes.
It's not to be served. Jesus said the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve. And my job as a fivefold leader is to equip people so that people can fulfill their function. You're not here to serve me. I'm here to serve you.
Mm.
I'm here to pour into you, to impart revelation, impart spiritual DNA, impart wisdom principles and wisdom keys into your life to equip you so that you can fulfill your assignment in the earth. That's what I'm here for. And so if I'm approaching every relationship that I have in the kingdom, whether it's being an uncle, whether it's being a father, whether it's being a big brother, if I'm showing that in my relationships, it's also got to be received in the way that it is given. And if it's not, it's very difficult for it to take root. Remember, Jesus gave the parable of the sower sowing the word.
Yes.
And there were different types of ground.
Mm-hmm.
And some ground, the seed couldn't even penetrate because it was so hard. Some people's hearts are so hard, they didn't even know how to receive love. They don't know how to receive revelation. They don't know how to receive impartation because they're so hard. And they've been hurt so bad that they have walls up everywhere to keep anything from penetrating. It's like a built-in defense mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
All you can do is water that hard heart with love.
Mm-hmm.
And you pour in love, and you pour in love, and you pour in love to soften that soil so that it can get to the place that that seed that you're trying to pour in will begin to germinate and take root within their life. There were some that you know, they had all these cares and all these things that choked that seed and kept it from coming to a harvest, kept it from manifesting. And sometimes we've got to help people root out the junk in their life so that things that are being imparted can take root and can grow. What am I talking about? I'm talking about how you receive what a big brother, what a father, what a mama, what an aunt, what a papa, what they do, how do you receive it? What is your heart condition like when it comes? That all has a big thing to play in whether or not it's successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's the heart of the one that's sowing it It's also the heart of the one that's receiving it. And it
Mm.
takes both. It's a two-way street.
Mm. That is so good because yeah, when you say it's a two-way street, we cannot pour into someone who's continually pulling away the cup, right? And sometimes people don't discern that the ones they're pouring into don't want it. That they just don't have the capacity to hold anymore because they're either wounded or they don't have a prior foundation to be able to build upon that new understanding.
Yeah.
Can you share with us a bit about how the Lord has even used your own spiritual family, like your spiritual brothers and sisters, to help you through difficult seasons of transition?
That is one of the most important things that God has done in my life, was given me people that have my back.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a lot of these people. I have a handful. There's a few that I am very intimate with. But these are people that can absolutely stick their finger in their face and tell me, boy, you need a checkup from the neck up because you got some stinking thinking right now. There are some that can tell me NO. I tell people all the time, we need two people in our life. We need those that KNOW us. They know us. But they don't know us after the flesh. They know us after the spirit.
Right.
Because the word says, know no man after the flesh. One of the mistakes that we've made in the kingdom is we know people after the flesh. We don't know them after the spirit.
That's right.
We don't know them by their gifting. We don't know them by their anointing. We don't know them by their grace. We don't know them by what they impart, what they give, what they carry. And you got to know those that labor among you.
Uh-huh.
And so it's important that we do that, but we need those that know us. So there are people in my life that know what my gifts are. They know what I carry. They know what I'm graced with. They also see my blind spots, because we all know in part and we prophesy in part. None of us sees all, knows all. We know and see the part that God reveals to us. But you may have a brother or a sister that sees things that you don't see. They become your biggest asset
Yes.
because they can come to you and they protect what you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
And so God will bring these people into your life if you are looking for them. Many times, kingdom connections come into our life and we don't recognize them.
Mm.
You've got to be looking for them. You know, Anthony Turner has become a very, very dear brother to me.
Yeah.
And when we met in Odessa, Texas at Apostle Catherine's ministry at
Mm-hmm.
the Lions and Eagles gathering. And we both felt a connection. There was a spark that jumped in my spirit and jumped in his. But neither one of us did anything about it. We just recognized it. And a whole year went by and we didn't talk once.
Wow.
Didn't interact once.
Huh.
The Lord was very gracious to us and he gave us a redo.
Mm-hmm.
We had a do-over because Apostle Catherine invited both of us to come back to Lions and Eagles again the following year. And we reconnected. And I said, bro, we are not doing this again. We have to be intentional about this relationship.
Yeah.
We're not going to let this go by and not follow up. God, we were both a little dumb. And we both admit it. We were both dumb because we felt the connection.
Yeah.
We saw the spark of the spirit in the relationship. But neither one of us pursued it.
Mm.
God in his grace gave us an opportunity to make it right. Now we talk fairly regularly. We can text, we can message, we can talk on the phone. Now we're ministering together around the country multiple times this year in multiple locations. not just once a year in Odessa.
Yes.
I believe this year he and I will be together 6 times,
Wow.
ministering together in person. Well, this came because we got very intentional. And so you have to recognize these relationships when God brings them to you.
Yes.
I have found some real kingdom connections within Love and Unity that I did not know. There are people that I dearly love today that a year ago I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know Dr. Baker. I think I had just met her in one of Don Hughes's live broadcasts about a year ago. I met her. And I was like, who is this woman? I love her. But I didn't know her yet. I just loved who she was and how she carried herself and what she carried. But over the last year, we've begun to interact. And now I talk to her fairly frequently.
Yeah.
And we're developing a relationship. Even other people that I knew distantly, like Dr. Jack Irvin or like Dr. Barry Cook, I've known both of them for long periods of time. Mm-hmm. But now we're closer than we were because through Love and Unity, we've begun to interact more. I didn't know Apostle Cal a year ago.
Yeah.
Now I love Apostle Cal. I had met Apostle Eddie, and when we first met, we were like oil and water and didn't mix. But now we're like buddies.
Yeah.
And I love Apostle Eddie now. And so when God puts people in your life, your responsibility is, number one, look for them.
That's right.
You've got to be looking for the connections. When you see those there's going to be a spark. When you see that spark of the Spirit, now you decide, okay, I'm going to honor this, and I'm going to sow into this relationship and see where it goes. My first spiritual daughter is Prophet Lisa Perna. That was my learning experience of how to be a father.
Oh, my.
And it was her learning experience of how to be a daughter.
Oh.
And I think God gave us both a lot of grace because neither one of us knew what we were doing.
How did you feel in your heart when the Lord first showed you that she was, and we only have about 7 minutes left, and then I want you to pray for those who feel orphaned in the spirit, but I want you to share with the people how you felt in your heart when the Lord revealed to you that she was your spiritual daughter. Was it similar to a natural child, or was it more like almost like a burden of shepherding her?
Well, you know what's really interesting is the relationship evolved. The first time that I met her was about 9 years ago, and she was doing internet radio back then. She had her program called Touched by Prayer. She wasn't even on video yet. It was long before Facebook Live was even thought of. And I had gone to her house. I was still functioning as a prophet, and I was teaching on the prophetic, on the broadcast. And after the broadcast was over, I sat at her dining room table till about 11 o'clock at night. And we talked, and I just poured into her and answered questions. And as I was leaving her house that night, this is what the Lord said to me. This is a long-term assignment for you. She's called to be a prophet, and you can help her if she will let you. And so I immediately knew those 3 things. It wasn't until probably 5 years later that I told her what she was called to. But I knew it the first day.
Wow.
But in the outworking of the relationship, there were times where I began to feel like her big brother.
Okay.
And I would tell her, I said, Lisa, I don't just feel like a mentor to you now. I feel like I'm your big brother. And then that began to morph. And I'd say, you know, Lisa, sometimes I feel like I'm your big brother. And sometimes I feel like I'm your father. I feel like it's morphing.
Yeah.
And it was about a year or 2 after that, she said, you're my father. And we both knew it. Yeah. It was gradual. And I found that with many of those that have become my spiritual kids, the relationships start one place, but they develop and grow to another place. That's why I don't believe in calling people father too quickly.
Yeah.
Because you can jump the gun. You can be infatuated with a personality. You can be infatuated with a gifting.
Yeah.
And because people have operated from an orphan spirit or an orphan heart, which is a real thing, sometimes the only thing that's going to cure or heal that orphan spirit or orphan heart is the love of a mother or a father. And you got to have that. Hey, Papa, hello, sweetheart. I love this young lady. This young lady who's almost as old as me, a few years younger than me, but I still
She
call
does
her young.
not look it. I honestly thought her and
No,
I
she does not look it. She
looks very young.
she's like fine wine. She just gets better with
I'm
age.
telling you, I was very shocked when I found out. I was like, what?
But the relationship evolved. And it's that way with many of my spiritual kids. It evolved. Thank you, sweetheart. It is a evolving relationship. And relationships end many times through what we put into them and what we receive different than when they start. Let me give you a biblical example. Paul and Barnabas were out doing their missionary work, and they decide that they're going to take John Mark with them.
Mm-hmm.
And John Mark isn't quite a primetime player yet. And he's not quite ready to handle the rigors of missionary trips and ministry life. And so John Mark decides, I'm going home to mama. I'm done with this. These boys are crazy and I ain't staying. So now Paul and Barnabas are fixing to go again. And Barnabas still wants to bring John Mark. And Paul's like,
He's
I
afraid.
ain't got time for this boy. I ain't got time to play babysitter. He ain't coming with me. And the contention got so severe that they actually separated.
Wow.
But Barnabas continued to see something in John Mark that Paul didn't see. And Barnabas, who means son of encouragement, continued to pour into John Mark. And at the end of Paul's life, Paul writes and says, and bring Mark, for he is profitable to me.
Oh.
The same guy who he said, cry baby, send him home to mama, said, bring him, for he is profitable to me. The dynamic of the relationship changed. So wherever you are in your relationships, if you will sow into them and you will honor them and not give up on them, even when the kids, even when your nieces or nephews or little brothers or sisters want to quit and throw in the towel, you don't give up on them. You continue to love them. You continue to pour into them. You continue to sow into them because you know that they are people of destiny. Every individual born on planet Earth is a child of destiny with the purpose of God, gifts from God, talents from God, passions from God, callings and anointings and graces that are on their life. And our job is to pour into them, sow into them, so that we bring those things out to the fullness so that they blossom and they end up walking and fulfilling their assignment. That's what we got to do.
So powerful. Thank you so much for being my guest today, Uncle Mike. You have been such a joy to have as usual. Can you share with us some ways in which people can connect with you and even look perhaps into your resources, books, and perhaps even your mentoring program for those that are interested?
Both of my books are on Amazon. And if you just type in Reverend Michael Fram on Amazon, both of my books should show up. I have an author's page. And you can Google me. I show up everywhere. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Rumble. And, of course, I'm on the Live in Unity broadcast. I'll be on tomorrow afternoon at 5:30 Eastern Time with Maturing the Sons of God. Mentoring program, just reach out to me on Facebook. Or you can send me an email through www.propheticdestinyministriesintl.org.
Prophetic Destiny Ministries International.
Yeah, INTL. not spelled
INTL.
out, INTL.org. And then you can send me an email and I can give you all the info on the mentoring program.
Wonderful. So he's here on Facebook. You can reach out to him if you're interested in any of his resources or his mentoring group. Thank you so much, Uncle Mike, for being my guest today. And thank you, friends, for being with us. Join me again next week for my special guest, Apostle Jesse Griffin. You
Awesome.
don't miss
My brother.
Yes. It's going to be a great time. Thank you, Uncle Mike. I'll see you backstage in just a second.
Okay, honey.
Thank you, friends. We will see you again next week at 2:30 Eastern, 7:30 British Standard Time, 11:30 Pacific, 1:30 p.m. Central Time for Blazing the Trail broadcast. And again, Apostle Jesse Griffin will be my guest, so you don't want to miss it. Blessings, everyone. We'll see you again soon.